All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Diana. I'm the Membership and Marketing Coordinator for Women of the Vine and Spirits. Thank you for joining us today for our Women of the Vine and Spirits live webinar. Subject today is how to even the playing field for women-owned companies in alcohol beverage. And we're here with Heather Cox, co-founder and president of Certify My Company. Hello, Heather.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us, and we're really excited about this.
Yeah, it is my absolute pleasure. Women of the Vine and Spirit is probably one of my favorite organizations from the second I met Deborah.
Oh, great. We'll hand it off to you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about how supplier diversity and diversity certification really can level the playing field for women-owned companies. So I always kind of start with this little tidbit of just information here is that, when you're walking a tightrope, the trick is not to look at your feet, because if you look at your feet, it's a surefire way to fall, even though it's counterintuitive. So your focus should always be at the very end, which is your goal, right? That's where you're going to go. So while the first step is the scariest, you are stepping out there and everyone's watching you. If you are laser focused on achieving those goals, you will reach the other side of the tightrope, which is why Philip Pettit, who is a famous tightrope walker, said, "If you see how carefully I prepare, you will see that actually I narrow the unknown to virtually nothing. And that is when I'm ready to walk the tightrope." So I love this metaphor, the tightrope in general. It's a great metaphor for life, for love, for business. It's a very non-ambiguous metaphor. So why am I so attached to the tightrope walking? So throughout my life, I have walked many metaphorical tightropes, but I have also walked actual tightropes, maybe not 1,000 feet in the air like Philip, but 4 or 8. If I was having a very brave day, I might reach that 8-foot tightrope. But I've also swung from trapezes, I've juggled, I've rode unicycles, I've even juggled while riding unicycles. And all of this was wearing these very pretty fancy costumes that you see on the screen right there. So from the age of 6 until 18, I actually trained and performed with a circus, which had tightropes and Spanish webs and jugglers. And after school every day, all through summers, while most of my friends were skipping ropes and playing soccer, I was performing. And it was a huge part of my childhood. And I really, really loved being part of the circus, and nothing could have prepared me more for life as an entrepreneur. So perhaps the most meaningful and lasting lessons that I learned from my time at the circus was that of perseverance and teamwork, cooperation, of coming together of all different types of diverse people. Because, the circus welcomes everybody. Everybody is allowed to come as long as you're willing to put in the work. So we had people that were career individuals, so just average school-age kids like myself. I grew up a very normal, middle-class Southern California life. I had 1 sister, 2 dogs, 2 cats, 2 guinea pigs. It's a pretty average life, which you don't hear often from diversity people. But it was a pretty normal, average life. And then, while some people run away to join the circus, I actually ran away to join real life. And I ended up going away to Spain for a year. And then I went off to study at the University of Texas at Austin, where I earned my degree in Spanish. So yes, my parents were extraordinarily proud of that Spanish degree. And a few years later, I got married, went on to have 5 children, including a set of twins. And all of that took place in the 5 kids took place in about 10 years. And amidst all of that, I started a company, which is Certify My Company. So this is kind of my own little circus that you see here. So as I said, about 10 years ago, when I was pregnant with my first kid, I was searching what to do next with my life. And I discovered that corporate America does not always embrace working mommies. So I was networking with some very successful women entrepreneurs just to kind of understand, and successful women business owners and business women discover what they were doing. And after meeting a lot of these very successful entrepreneurs who were running $1, $10, $60 million companies, a theme started to arise, and it was about this certification. And I knew nothing about it. But what they were saying is that they couldn't get through this application process. And I couldn't understand how somebody who runs a $110, $40 million company couldn't complete an application. So I went home and I researched the application to figure out what they were talking about. And what I discovered was that the application process is very detail oriented. It asks questions that they may have not ever thought about since they started the company, if even then, or the documents they were asking for were called something entirely different in their state. So I went back to these women and I said, let me do this application for you. And voila, Certify My Company was born. Then a few years later, we were working with a large Fortune 500 company, and we were asking them, how else we could help them. And they introduced us to some of their colleagues, and they introduced me as an expert. So the first time you're ever called an expert, as many of you know, it's a little shocking, but I remembered reading this article that asked the expert that was a part of the article how he became an expert. And he said, I called myself an expert. So I figured if a guy can do it, I can do it too. So, well, I think it is a funny story to talk about, to call myself an expert. We really have become the name in the supplier diversity and certification world for anybody that is truly eligible to be certified. So, and I do really like talking about supplier diversity and diversity certification, and anyone that meets me in person will have to stop me from continuing because I will effervesce about it for minutes to hours at a time. So, okay, so let's jump into what exactly we're going to talk about today. So the next kind of 20 minutes, give or take, because we want to leave a lot of time for Q&A. I'm going to be your ringmaster as I talk about the 3 rings of supplier diversity, the actions and effects of corporations and diverse businesses working to forward the cause of diversity. So in the first ring, we have certification for diverse businesses. And we're going to look at the process of becoming certified and the role certification has in ensuring the success of these women-owned businesses and diverse-owned businesses. In the second ring, we have the corporate supplier diversity programs. And we're going to look at how corporations with strong supplier diversity programs see and feel the benefits and how by doing good, they end up doing well. And then the third ring, we have the economic impact. And it's also known as the spillover effect. And I'm going to talk about how the success of programs have a huge impact on the economic health of our communities, ourselves as individuals, and as our country and as a whole. Now, the 3 rings will interweave a bit because that's part of the magic of supplier diversity. Diverse businesses influence the companies they supply to. The companies then have the ability to elevate profits from their companies, and then they hire more suppliers. The suppliers hire more employees, and then the employees have more disposable income, and they pay more taxes, right? So it's a well-functioning 3-ring circus that all works together. So I want to start, though, with what is supplier diversity? Because that is a question we do get asked quite often. So supplier diversity is a business strategy that ensures a diverse supplier base. So meaning when a corporation or any company really buys goods or services, by including women, minority, LGBT, veteran, disabled-owned businesses in that supply chain, that becomes a supplier diversity program. And if you guys have questions throughout, if you want me to, you can do the Q&A box and we'll make sure we answer them as we're going through. So I want to review the history of supplier diversity. It's not a brand new concept. I know there's a lot of people talking about it now, but it has really been around since the late 60s, right? So supplier diversity programs often, oops, went too fast there. Pretend you didn't see that change there. So I want to make sure we really do talk about the history of it. So the business environment now is dramatically changing, and supplier diversity is no longer a nice to have notion on a corporation's annual report. It really is what makes a competitive advantage for both corporations and small and diverse businesses, right? Because it boosts profitability, it increased return on their investment, and changes in our society, in the consumers within our society dictate that they want more transparency. They want to know who is making these products, who is going to benefit from the funds that are paid in purchasing these products. You'll see posts all the time, I do them myself, that say when you buy from a woman-owned business, you're not buying a CEO a second house, right? You're helping them pay for dance lessons and creating and developing individuals and the communities that they live in. So you'll see the kind of history of it here. In the 60s, it began kind of on the tails of the civil rights movement, and then moved into the 70s of just talking about it's the right thing to do. In the 80s, we learned more about government compliance with government contracts, from aerospace into the military. And they started looking at really regulating how much goes into what originally was just minority and then moved into women-owned businesses. In the 90s, they started to see the value proposition and the return on investment that people are starting to get. But it really was more in the services. They were trying to look for marketing firms because they wanted to speak to the women they're marketing to. It was in those kind of services, marketing, development, advertisement, because they realized that women understand women, and so they wanted to speak to that. In the 2000s, we started hearing more about the large corporations who had these programs, and there was awards and recognition attached to those programs. And it had a good PR and publicity component to it that allowed them to use it as business development and advertising. So, because they knew that the consumers knew that these corporations were supporting women and minority-owned businesses. And then as we move into the 2010s and later into the 2000s, they really started focusing on, it's nice to spend this money, but we can't just talk about it being a cost center for the corporations. It really has to be a return on the investment. We have to be able to make money off of these supplier diversity programs. And we started seeing more of the inclusion of the LGBT community, the disabled community, even more on the veterans. The government has talked to veterans for a while, but it's really now they realize that when someone comes home from serving in the military, they have these skills, and so putting them to work. And so by offering this access, if you're a veteran-owned business, is getting equal play to the women and the minorities now. So we're definitely seeing a change in how things have moved forward. So consider these facts. In 2016, the buying power of the Hispanic community was greater than the gross domestic product of Mexico. That is a very, very big number. In 2016, the African American buying power was estimated at $1.2 trillion and expected to grow to $1.5 trillion by 2021. Women, who we're talking about today, control over $20 trillion in annual consumer spending globally. In the US, women influence or manage over 85% of all consumer purchases. A study of America's largest retailer found that a certain percentage of women, I'll tell you who the retailer is, and I'll let you answer the question via the Q&A. So Walmart actually did a study, and they asked their customers in their stores throughout the country how much more likely they would be to purchase a product if they knew that the company was owned by a woman or the product was manufactured by a woman. So in that Q&A box, go ahead and let me know what percentage you think said they would be more likely to purchase something if they knew a woman made it or owned the company. We'll see who gets it right. Ooh, some good guesses here. All right, we have 70%, 90%, 25%, 50%. So Gina, you were the closest at 90%. They said 90%, no, Sandra, not 30, 90. They were 90% more likely to buy a product if they knew another woman made the product or owned the company. Now, Walmart's not dumb, and they realize that is a lot of money in their pocket. So they actually got together and helped create some more buzz around it and have end caps on their shelves for women-owned businesses. So, the impact of consumers is widely recognized, but what about the role of suppliers, of the women-owned businesses? So the U.S. Small Business reported that from 2016, the small businesses in the U.S. were at about $28.8 million in number, which is about 99% of all businesses in the U.S. were small businesses. And many of those businesses are in fact diverse. As of 2016, there were 8 million minority-owned firms in the U.S. and about 11.3 women-owned businesses in the U.S. American Express Open, you're probably familiar with that organization, found that the number of women-owned business has more than doubled over the last 20 years, and that women are the majority owners of 38% of all U.S. businesses. So there is a lot to say about what diverse-owned businesses give back, because we've all heard that small businesses are the number one employer in the country, right? So as of 2012, there are approximately 7.9 million minority-owned businesses with combined gross receipts of 1.4 trillion and over 7.1 million employees. The 2016 report by the NGLCC, which is the gold standard of certification for the LGBT-owned businesses, said that $1.15 billion was paid out to the economy by just over 1,000 firms. So there's a lot of money out there that we as small businesses, as women-owned businesses, are giving back to the economy. And we can only do that when we have customers and clients that engage us for business. So this all makes sense, right? Everyone's nodding their head. Yes, Heather, this makes sense. I totally understand. We need to make sure more women get business, they get more bids and opportunities. So when you take all this into account between the purchasing power and the economic impact, it only makes sense that these corporations would want to commit to supplier diversity initiatives because they're good for the corporations, they're good for the economy, right? We're seeing all these numbers. So then why do we need a program? It all makes such good sense, Heather. Why do we need a program? And it is an excellent question. It's actually the question that Tony Shea from Zappos asked me when he said, Heather, it makes sense. Everything you're telling me makes sense. Why do we need a program? And my answer is simple, and I think that most of you will agree. People, we're human, and people don't like change. They need encouragement. They need goals. They need a clear-cut, structured plan and incentives to help them reach that goals. If somebody has been doing the same thing for 15 years, 5 years, 2 years, and it doesn't seem to be causing problems, why would they do anything that disrupts them? Same thing, right? If you feel relatively healthy, why are you going to start to go to the gym? The first few days in the gym, you feel like garbage. Everything hurts. You want to throw up. Nothing seems right, right? But once you start going, once you do that change, as painful as it can be in the beginning, you start to think, wow, I feel better. My clothes fit better. I'm sleeping better, all the different pieces. And it's the same thing for any program. When they start to see it, when they start to get some of those little wins, when they start to make those sometimes painful changes, you actually get to see a difference and feel the difference. So we're going to move to our rings. I know that was a long introduction to get to our rings. We're talking about certification. So I'm going to demystify some of the acronyms that are currently thrown out there. And there's actually one that's missing from this list, so I'll make sure I talk about it. So the first one we're going to talk about is women-owned businesses. And that is the theme for today because we are talking about women of the vine and spirits. And I know Deborah's going to talk about the certified portion of it. And so we typically call them WBEs, WBE. Some people hate it, some people love it, but it's a much easier, quicker way to say women-owned business enterprise. Next is minority-owned, which is MBE, veteran, VBE, or sometimes it's VOBE. Then there's the LGBT business enterprise, and there's also the disabled owned business enterprise, which is DOBE. There's also some small business ones and small disadvantaged business veterans. So to become officially certified, which is a good question, how do you determine if a company is, oh, there's my DOBE, if a company is eligible for these certifications? So the eligibility for all of these is pretty much the same thing, okay? We're going to talk about the women though. So in order to be certified as a woman-owned business enterprise, the company must meet 4 eligibility requirements. The first is ownership. Does the woman or women own at least 51% or more of the company? That's a pretty simple check or no check. You look at your documentation, you discover yes or no, we are owned by 51% or more women. And it could be mixed. It could be, one woman owns 30% and then a bunch of other ones own 5%, right? Or just one woman owns 52%, whatever it is. But as long as a number comes to 51 or more. The next is operation. Do women work in the company on a day-to-day basis in management functions? Do they manage the company? And do they have the highest ranking title in the company? Okay. Now that one can get tricky because the highest ranking title is often defined in your governing documents, which if you're an LLC is your operating agreement. If you're a corporation is your bylaws, and there's some other ones, membership agreements, partnership agreements, but they will almost always define what the highest ranking title is. So in that little chat box, we're going to do a quick little test. Chat me or message me, whatever you call that Q&A box, the highest ranking title in a corporation. I keep them coming. We have CEO, we have president, we have CEO. So typically the highest ranking title, someone else wrote board, is actually the president. And sometimes they'll say president is also the CEO, but typically the highest ranking title is the CEO. Now, if you have not been the CEO or the president because you had someone else who needed the title and you need to change that title, you could be Queen of the Nile. It doesn't really matter what you call yourself as long as your governing documents match that is the highest ranking title in the company. The next is control. Does a woman or women control the company per those governing documents? So people typically, this is usually where people get into trouble because we're looking at, they're looking at all the different clauses in there. The board of directors. Is there any unanimous requirements for any voting at all? Those are where people get in trouble. And actually the biggest reason people are denied certification is not because they're not eligible, but because their documentation is inaccurate or incomplete. So as long as you meet those 3 requirements, and then the additional piece, which is independence. In order for a company to be certified through the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, which is the gold standard of WBE certification nationwide, and the one that Women of the Vine and Spirit recognizes, you cannot rely on a non-woman-owned business for essential resources. And that includes employees, that includes equipment. So if you are working out of your uncle's, he has a 6-story building and you're like, oh, I'm just going to use this space, and there's no actual lease, that will render you ineligible, right? You need to have a lease. You need to make it as if you were renting from anybody else, okay? And those are the pieces that are so important about the devil is in the details. I'll repeat number 4. Yeah, number 4 is independence. The company needs to be independent from any other firm. So if somebody, let's say, for example, you're a printer and you use all of your brother's prints, all your brother's print equipment, you're not an independent company. Oh, there was like a Q&A that confused me for a second. Okay. So you can be eligible for multiple certifications at the same time. And I would recommend that if you are eligible to really think about which certifications your clients are going to look for. So most of the people that are involved in Women of the Vine and Spirit recognize the WeBank certification, right? They understand that that is the gold standard. And I would say certification is advisable, if not imperative, for any business that fits the eligibility requirement, that is looking to scale and grow and work with the Fortune 1000 business or even other WeBank certified businesses. Even small businesses buy goods and services. When we redo our website, when we make marketing materials, when I have to refer clients to a trust attorney, I always look to work with other certified diverse suppliers because I know they have been vetted by another organization. So we're going to move on to ring number 2, which is the corporate supplier diversity programs. So corporations with supplier diversity programs want and need to work with certified diverse suppliers. And I always specify certified diverse suppliers because there are some companies who take what's called self-identification, but it is becoming a way of the past because I can tell you I am anything I want, right? I can tell you I'm a Black-owned business. I can tell you I'm an LGBT-owned business. Without the certification, you have no proof somebody else has said I am who I am. And unfortunately, human nature is when there is money involved, right? We sometimes will tell them what they need to hear. So by having a third-party organization say they are exactly who they say you are, you have another person behind you. So for the corporations, I could easily bombard you with statistics after statistics and study after study, right? Because I love to collect those things. And I could tell you that the 2015 Hackett Research Group found that companies with strong, robust supplier diversity programs have about 133% return on their investment. The same companies that were surveyed by the Hackett Group found that the supplier diversity programs drove an additional $3.6 million to their bottom line for every $1 million they invested in their diversity procurement costs. I could also tell you that the same organization found that 99% of diverse suppliers met or exceeded expectations, and that companies that allocate 20% or more of their spend to diverse suppliers attribute 10 to 15% of annual sales to their supplier diversity program. There is no question that you can make a supplier diversity program a revenue producer and not a cost center. So I will share with you that throughout the supplier diversity history, the supplier diversity programs have been classified as those cost centers. They're back office. They're what costs the company money, not makes the company money. But I just shared with you some research, some studies that show that when used correctly, you can actually make supplier diversity programs a business development tool, a revenue center, a growth driver. And it is the old-fashioned way of thinking that is actually stalling and failing diverse suppliers, right? We need to recognize supplier diversity programs for the potential that they have and the tangible benefits. So Shelley Stewart, who is the CPO of DuPont, he said that he has over 100,000 suppliers. He said, I do not need any more suppliers. But what he does need is strategic partners, not transactional suppliers. He needs those suppliers who are going to work with him, work with his team, work with his company, bring them ideas. You know, women-owned businesses we see things differently than other businesses out there. We're more nimble. We're able to do things a little bit differently. And when you bring those ideas, just think about what Deborah's created here. This is something that a woman-owned business said, we don't have this, we need this. The corporations are begging for it. And just from that way of thinking, understanding the position of women in the economy, an amazing opportunity was born for so many other women-owned businesses. And that is that's being strategic, not transactional. Which brings us to the ring number 3, right? The economic impact or spillover effect. So now once you've solidified your program, and I will say that you really need to know your baseline. The first thing for any corporation to do is to understand where they start. What are you currently spending with certified diverse suppliers? And if it might mean 0, you might have 0 certified diverse suppliers in your supply chain. But when you do that report, and there are third-party companies who do that, and I can share information with you anybody who needs it. to find out who you're spending your money with now. And they will determine if they're classified, meaning eligible, or they've stated in some way, shape, or form that they are diverse, or if they are actually certified. And then once you know your baseline, you can say, oh, wow, we only bought like $1 million of stuff from certified diverse suppliers, certified women-owned businesses. How can we bring more opportunity? Right? And that's when you're working within your organization, with the procurement team, with the marketing team, with the F&B team, whatever it is, whatever your company is. How else can you utilize these women-owned businesses? Can we partner with this small, even partnering with the smaller businesses, right, is a great way to elevate them, to help them scale. So once you've solidified your program and you have solid metrics about who your certified suppliers are, the next step I always recommend, and I'm going to go kind of fast during this piece because it doesn't really necessarily pertain to everything we're talking about today. But an economic impact report is one of my favorite pieces of information to encourage corporations to do, because they are awesome and there are so many possibilities for them. And so without going too far down the rabbit hole, I'm just going to share a couple of stories and facts for you. And I keep scrolling right past that. It doesn't want me to share these stories or facts with you. So I keep scrolling right past it. There we go. The National Minority Supplier Development Council, in partnership with the Institute for Thought Leadership, researched the effects on 12,000 or nearly 12,000 certified minority-owned businesses. And the report was back in 2014, because it takes a while to get the data, research the data, report the data, that these 12,000 certified minority-owned businesses were responsible for over $400 billion in annual revenue, created 2.2 million jobs, either directly or indirectly, and produced $49 billion in local, state, and federal taxes. That is a lot of impact. So what does that mean for the suppliers themselves? Okay, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories about a gentleman named Bill. And Bill was a recruiter for years. Bill was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's. So he gained a tremor very early on in his life, in like his mid-30s, which is really early. In 2008, his company he was working for closed down, as did a lot of companies in the country. And he went from interview to interview to interview to try to get another job. And they took one look at his shaking hands and sent him away. And he's like, I'm on the phone when I'm recruiting. My shake, no one can hear my shake on the phone. And he was getting more angry, but he has a family to support. So he took advantage of different things he could take advantage of, but he went to a large corporation, a Fortune 500 company, and said to them, I would like to be an outside recruiter for you. And he happened to meet the supplier diversity manager at an event. And the supplier diversity manager said to him, get a few wins under your belt, meaning get a contract or two with even small companies, get certified as a diverse owned business. He happened to be a disabled owned business, and come back to me. And about a year or two later, he did, with millions of dollars in sales and 6 employees. So now, instead of having to take from the economy, he's giving. He's giving people jobs. He's creating jobs. He's paying taxes, right? In Chicago, there is a tech firm that was onboarded through a Chicago-based large company. And because of this contract, he was able to create 40 new jobs, which estimated about $2 million in gross wages, just from this one small certified diverse tech firm that got their introduction through a supplier diversity program. So, there is a lot that happens when you bring on one certified diverse business. So imagine what happens when you bring on multiple certified women-owned businesses. The other spillover benefits are, lower crime rate, increased opportunity. There's an undeniable effect on health care. Studies show that our health is only 20% of our health is actually dictated by our health care, by our medical care. The other 80% is social factors. Can we go outside? Do we have fresh air? Do we have access to parks? Right? Those are huge pieces of what makes an economy healthy, right? The economics of a community. It's not all about starting businesses. We can start business all day long. It's about scaling and growing, because talent may be universal, but opportunity is not. And that's what certification, the WeBank certification, the NMSDC certification does for businesses, and why it's so important, because it gives people the opportunity to engage with potential customers. So those are the 3 rings. It's an easy way to remember the basics about something that I'm uber passionate about, if you haven't picked up on that yet, that I could go on for days. I have to stop myself. So to be able to walk a wire, to be able to juggle 6 hoops, you need to focus. And another word for tenacity, which is passion. And I know I've talked a lot. I'm not here to start a revolution, but I am tenacious. And I love to share why supplier diversity is a valuable contribution to companies, to a culture, and to the bottom line. How does CMC help? We work with diversity consulting, corporate supplier diversity consulting, certification consulting, and educational programming like this. I mentioned I have 5 kids, and I really want them to live in a world where more people are full than hungry, where they never see a homeless child and they don't have to fear walking through their neighborhoods, whether it be a leisurely stroll or a commute to work, and where corporate America is thriving and inclusive for all. And these 5 little faces are relying on you, on me, on everybody to create a business world that more closely resembles the world we actually live in. You know, Women of the Vine and Spirit is a force that is helping make that happen, and helping women business enterprise in the alcohol industry work towards that goal. So if there's any question, I'm going to hand this over to Deborah now. If she wants to add anything to what I've said. Hopefully I haven't gone overboard or too far, Deborah.
This is Diana. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Heather. This is amazing information. And yes, we have Deborah Brenner, founder and CEO of Women of the Vine and Spirits. She is on, and we're going to have her introduce the women-owned and certified program. Deb,
Great.
what do you want?
Wonderful.
Yay, we can see ya.
See me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now how do I get my screen full here?
See, that's why I had to go first. Like, get my screen right.
Nope, that's not gonna work. Well, you've seen it from the side, so I got to get rid of this. I got this. So anyway, well, I figured this out. I will. I'm technology challenged, as you can tell from the beginning. So there we go. That's what I was looking for. So welcome everybody. I am super, super excited about this. I have to say that this has been a program that has been in the works for quite a long time. Anybody that knows me, like Heather, my passion is always absolutely overflowing, especially when it comes to promoting and supporting women in the industry. I like to say I'm a serial entrepreneur because this isn't my first go around. Many of you may know that I had a wine company many years ago. We were the first collaborative of all women winemakers. And I knew about this back then, but timing is everything, and it has been my dream. So I'm excited to launch. When I started talking to many people about what this was, I have to say a majority of people have never heard of supplier diversity and what supplier diversity programs are all about. So I am so pleased to work with Heather on what does this mean, because we need to educate. So Heather, thank you on all of that. And what does this mean for members and Women of the Vine and Spirits and going forward? Well, first of all, as Heather mentioned, we are really pleased that Women of the Vine and Spirits has officially been named as a strategic alliance for the certifying bodies. And like Heather said, these are the gold standard certifying bodies that most of the companies, and it is in the future going to be more and more strict as they have to actually report. So we're working with both certifying bodies. We're also working closely with Heather on how to get certified. But the big question that everybody asks is, what happens after you get certified? Now what, right? I have the certification. I have all these great statistics from from Heather about all these companies wanting to spend money. Well, that's where Women of the Vine and Spirits in our organization of connecting through our global network becomes so important. Because what we want to do here is we want to help you and the buyers to basically matchmake and find one another. I have to say that we created the Certified Women-Owned Women of the Vine and Spirits logo. And as of just yesterday, the TTB has given us approval for the logo under the allowable revision number 30, which means that if you already have approved labels from TTB on your colas, you do not need to resubmit them. You can see here we have a mock-up of what that what the label looks like if you want to use the certified. So what does this mean? Well, by being a member of Women of the Vine and Spirits and then applying for the certified and women-owned program is twofold. By being a corporate member, many of you may know that you already get the opportunity to network with one another, learn from one another, and we support and help you, to grow your business. But on the secondary level, if you apply and become a part of the women-owned, is you will also be in our database. So when companies are trying to identify, they can go and they'll look at the WeBank database, they'll look at the WBE, they'll look at the minority database, but it's pretty limited with the information that you get there. So with Women of the Vine and Spirit, they can get a whole host of information about you, your brands, how you make your brands and all of that. So we really see Women of the Vine being the kind of the number one go-to resource. Number two, it allows for the buyers also, not just through the database, but also through your products, to find and recognize products that are women-owned, which currently they cannot do. They have a lot of difficulty because there's not many that are certified. We do have some that are, but a majority are not. And most importantly, as Heather said about the study with Walmart, and we also just conducted our own study with Wine Intelligence, and it proved the exact same results. Right. That over 90% of women will purchase or try a product at least once if they know a woman is behind it. So can you imagine having this right on your label, on your shelf talkers, your neckers, your POS, and your different case cards and things? That is our goal, is to help not only get your products on the shelf, but as we know, the secret to success is depletions. Get them off the shelf. So we got to help you get them on. We got to help you get them off. We see this as a way to get on the shelf, and then a way for the consumer to say, "Oh my God, it's certified women-owned. I want to check this out." So the program is just launching. We want to get more and more people involved. I see all the participants that are on. If you want more information, please email us at info@womenofthevine.com, and we'd love to get you involved. Before I go to the next slide, does anybody have any questions about this right now? Where's my Q&A box? There we go. I can go to the next one so we have one saying, "This is awesome." I love that.
Is awesome.
Okay. How do we get a copy of that logo for labels? So here's how the program's going to work. Let me first go to my last slide. So thanks for that question, Ann. So if my slide works. So my last slide here, and then I'll answer those questions. So we are really thrilled, and like Heather said, right now trillions of dollars are spent on supplier diversities and diverse suppliers in the world. As you can see here, less than 1% of all that money is going to women-owned companies. So it is our mission to change that together. I would love to see that go up from the work that we're doing. And we have been told that literally this is a game changer for the industry, not just from Kenyatta, but by a lot of other companies. Heather and I have been tag teaming, meeting a lot of people from Costco, Marriott, MGM, Caesars, Total Wine, BevMo, United Airlines, the list goes on and on, Walmart, Target, CVS. So let me say, answering your questions. So how does the program work? Well, first of all, by first becoming a corporate member of Women of the Vine and Spirits, that's your first entry into this. Now, could you go ahead and go to WeBank or WeConnect by yourself and not become a member? Absolutely, we understand that. But I can tell you that even as a wine owner in my past, I didn't have the network to meet the people, to network and to get the support. So I was really on my own. We are the only women's organization to support you. And we also recognize for a lot of people that you're small and you're startup and entrepreneurs. Hey, I was scrappy entrepreneur. So we've built some layers in that of levels. So I like to say when you grow, we grow. So we're really building this program so that you can get started on an entry level, or perhaps Jackson Family Wine with Barbara Banke on the helm. If she's 51% or more and has control, well, that's a whole different story with Jackson Family, I think. But I think you can see we want to look at that and level the playing field. So yes, in order to work with us and to get the women-owned logo that we have, you do have to be a corporate member and then apply for the application to get the certified women-owned logo. The reason for the application is because you must submit your certification. So even if you're in the process of getting certified, let's just say that you're in the process, maybe you're working on your own, or you've hired Heather and her company to guide you through this, which I have to say I did, and very, very easy, and so thrilled that Heather got my paperwork process. You can also then become a member, and as your certification comes in, you then can upload and add your certification documents. And then at that point, we will give you that you've been approved, we've checked the certification, WeBank and WeConnect, and we'll give a style guide as well as the guidelines of how to use the logo, where and when, because obviously it is intellectual property, and we will go ahead and give you all of that. You must renew annually, because what happens if you raise capital and your status does change? So you do need to just show us each year that your status of women-owned has remained the same. How long does the process of certification take? Well, it depends if you go it alone and you, like Heather said, if you have no hiccups and your paperwork is all in order, then from start to finish with WeBank, it could be up to 90 days. With
It was actually 90 to 120 days, Deborah, from the time they receive their completed application.
So I can tell you that a lot of times people will submit applications, and then, as we all know from things, they'll come back saying, oh, you didn't have this right, or you didn't have that right. And so that's also something, but at the time you do submit it. That's why we said you can get involved as a two-step process. You can actually get involved with Women of the Vine now and start working with us. We are talking to all these buyers. I think we may even have one of our members on the webinar today that one of the big companies, I believe it's MGM, is already ready to go, and they're just waiting for the certification to come through for them to take the product. So sometimes we could get one little step ahead by letting people know that they're in the process of certification, it's coming, and already start, getting buyers' attention. WeConnect International, just to talk about the difference. WeBank was the original certifying body, and WeBank is for US based and US citizens only. So as you can imagine, what about all of our wonderful sisters in spirits and wine and beer around the world? WeConnect International joined the scene about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and they are the sister company So they manage anything that's outside of the US. So if you have colleagues anywhere else in the world, they also can now get certified through We Connect. And that's why it was very important for Women of the Vine and Spirits to make sure that we partnered with both WeBank and We Connect, because we do have so many incredible women owners around the globe.
Deborah, can I just make a small addendum to what you just said? So for WeBank, you can actually be a legal U.S. resident as well. You don't need to be a citizen, but you can be a legal resident as well.
Perfect. Well, this is why we have Heather here, because I had the vision of wanting to do this, but I would not try to do this alone. I want to say I am the catalyst to try to get this to you, educate. Somebody's also asking a question, which certification is better?
I'm not sure I understand the question though.
Well, before I let Heather ask that, I don't know if we mentioned you also get certified in multiple categories. So if we didn't mention that, let me just say, if you are a minority, Hispanic, African American, any other type, if you are a veteran, if you are a lesbian, you can have multiple certifications. And the benefit of that, I'm going to let Heather talk about, because she's more of an expert. And then you can answer the other question.
Yeah, so the question from Anne is WeBank or We Connect. So they're not, if you are a US based company, then WeBank is your option. If you are outside of the US, then We Connect has different, they have We Connect Canada, We Connect Africa, right? So there's different ones. So they're not competitors, they're different options depending on if you're a domestic or a foreign company. And yeah, I definitely would say to get certified in multiple categories if you're eligible, because what happens, so for example, Certify My Company is WeBank certified, but we're also Disability In certified. So we're also a certified disabled owned company. So what happens is that some of our corporate clients will say, oh, you know what, we need to report all of our different goals and all of our achievements. And so if they're light on the disabled one, for example, they can move us into a different bucket, right? Or some of our corporate clients actually have government requirements. And so they'll need to fulfill the disabled spend more, and the women one might be easier for them to fulfill. And so they're able to move us wherever it's better for them for that specific contract. So it just makes us a little more beneficial to them, that we're more nimble and pliable as far as our certifications. And the same goes if you're a veteran, if you're like a Black female veteran, then you have 3 options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously we just want to make sure part of our job as we start rolling this program out is going to be a lot of education, a lot of questions. That is the other reason why to become a member of Women of the Vine and Spirits, because we are here to support you. We are here to guide you. This is our first webinar. It is certainly not our last, but we are also going to have download resources on the website. We're going to have, frequently asked questions where as you can see, Heather is so passionate. I'm obviously my whole mission. So we don't want to leave you hanging. We want to help. And we know that this is very new for people. Especially, I can't even tell you, even when we first went to TTB, they didn't really know what we were asking for when I, described everything. But like I said, what we're also doing is we're speaking to these buyers. I just connected one of our members to the supplier diversity buyer at Costco. Everybody knows Annette Alvarez's name. Annette is the most powerful woman and buyer, but you probably don't know Sven Nader's name because he is the alcohol beverage supplier diversity buyer. So you can see that Heather and I are also working really hard, and it is our goal to get as many people certified so that in 2020, if any of you know about our global symposium, which has been, a success, symposium, it is our goal, if you guys are interested and we get our women owned, that in 2020, Women of the Vine and Spirits will host a supplier diversity trade fair. for women owned, and invite these buyers and invite United and MGM and Total to come and have a tasting and a trade fair. So that's our ultimate goal. I hope we can meet that in 2020.
We will. I'm confident.
We will. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm on the tightrope. So I think that, the other thing I want to also stress, if anybody has questions, this is not just for products. This is services. So anybody out there today having marketing companies, legal, law firms, packaging companies, label design, glassware, let us know if anybody out there is a non-supplier, more services. I don't see anybody answering yet. Oh wait, maybe I didn't. So the other thing we just want to make sure is that we're educating people that this could be mixers. I know we have a member who has some specialty salts. That could also be, certified women owned to sell into, bars and restaurants and on premise. If you are marketing or PR services or accounting services, those also are considered part of the spend, and not just the products. So I know we're approaching our time. We gave a lot of information. We have a question from Rachel. I'm a small volume wine producer. Is there a minimum amount of product that buyers are looking for? I can answer that from Caesars that was recently with us at an event. And somebody asked the same question because they don't have the volume as they would think that someone like Caesars would want. The answer that I was given, and I'm prefacing that because I'm still learning, but the answer that we were given in the group was that they can buy in batches and they can allocate product to different bars. So it's not like you need to be the size of Constellation to get into Caesars. They may just bring you into one allocation for one particular part of their on-premise or retail. So they do still work with smaller producers. And so that is something that you shouldn't stop yourself from doing. That's what that's the whole goal is we grow, you grow. We need for you to get in there to grow.
There's also, Deborah, I've heard large retailers say something similar where they can do it regionally. So maybe you're someone who's just in the South, they'll put you in their southern properties or their southern stores or their southern bars or through their southern distribution channel. And so because they do like to have different options available in different regions of their reach as well.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. Like we know, even when I was selling to, Harris Teeter and Target and others, often I got into certain regional segments, and then as I could grow and show the traction, we would move in. I know that Total Wine also does that. When I first launched my wine with Total Wine, we were only in 5 Total Wine stores. So yes, that's also things that you can do in supplier diversity. So yes, that's a great
question.
Are there any other questions as we wrap things up? Any comments from anybody? So I know that we have, one of our members that just recently scored a national opportunity with Target for her Scotch whiskey through supplier diversity. We are just thrilled to hear about that. We want to start compiling and working directly. A lot of you today, you are on the forefront, so take advantage of working very closely with us. We have another question that says, can we give a list of on and off premise accounts that support WeBank? Yes, we can. WeBank has corporate members that they have a list of companies. I mentioned some of them. Disney. I forgot, Heather. We're talking to Disney.
I forgot about Disney, right?
Disney. How did we forget the fun place of Disney?
And Disney has all of their other companies also. It's not just Disney. It's all of their companies, right?
Yes. So, yes, we can help, work with you on off-premise and on-premise accounts. The other thing is, before I answer Rachel's question on next steps of getting interested, so before some people may have to drop off, if you're interested in getting certified and being a part with Women of the Vine and Spirit, please go ahead and email us at info@womenofthevine.com. And we will get you all the information as we're building it out. We will work with you, and we want to get to know about you and your product. So instead of just an application form, we want to start and really talk with you and see what your goals and objectives are, so we know as well. So again, info@womenofthevine.com. And then there's one other really interesting piece here, and I think she's still on the line and asked me, well, I'm actually a certified, I'm a diverse supplier for Google. What does that mean? And how can I get into some of their bars and into their programs? And I didn't even know this, what could happen, but let's just say, like when Heather talked about Bank of America and things earlier, you can actually be a wine or spirit company and apply for supplier diversity with like a Bank of America. And it has nothing to do with Bank of America. They don't sell product, they don't buy, but they host massive events for corporate and for their others. And if they go to a venue and they rent a venue to host an event, they will look for diverse suppliers, and then you can qualify for them through that way. So that's why Google and other things, if they have it, it still can be problematic depending on the state that you're in if you don't have a distributor. But that is where Women of the Vine and Spirits is here to help and support you, is that we have distributor partners with Southern, with RNDC and Breakthrough and Young's and Wine Warehouse and Horizon. And so that's the power of the network, is so that you don't get all the way in somewhere and then get stuck. We want, if you get stuck, let's see how we can help you, and that's what we're here to do. Does that make sense for everybody? Because we are dealing with a very tricky 3-tier system, which I also think why Women of the Vine and Spirits is so important, because it's not like other products. I mean, how many other entrepreneurs cannot sell their own product and don't know where their product's going? It's such a tough business. So I'm extremely passionate about it too. But
we could go on for days, Deborah, days.
Well, we are coming up to 2:03 right now. So thank you so much, Heather, for getting on and giving us all this great information. And yes, Deb, if anybody wants to contact us, info@womenofthevine.com, and then we can go from there. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Heather. Thank you, Deb, and we'll have a good.
Will you send out my contact information for anyone who wants to get in touch with me as well afterwards?
Absolutely. So I'm going to be sending out a post email for everybody, so they have takeaways and contact information for everyone to be able to get a hold of you. So
perfect.
All right.
Diana mentioned we have an entrepreneur discussion group.
And yes.
Discussion continues. We have so many questions. We want to help each other. That's what we're here. So on top of all the information we're going to give you, this is just our first webinar. We're going to be bringing more and more guests to talk about their successes, talk about what they're doing, to share the good, bad, and the ugly. And we have our discussion group. So that is also on our website. So have a great evening, everybody. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.